Record to the class. Okay, so
Okay.
we're about to go live. Okay, we're on. Okay. Hello and good evening and welcome to Transformation Thursday. And this evening, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker for this evening, Miss Kendra Jackson. And we are going to learn all about Ayurvedic medicine, or should I just say Ayurveda?
Ayurveda, the basics of Ayurveda.
Okay. And we are going to learn the basics of Ayurveda with Miss Kendra Jackson. So just take it away. You can tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can just dive right into the topic.
Sure. I live in the Bronx and I teach high school. I've been a part of the Department of Education for the last 19 years. And since 2006, I've been teaching yoga and mindfulness in the schools. I did my Ayurvedic certification through Kripalu in the Himalayan Institute. So for the last 10 years, I've been implementing some Ayurveda in my mindfulness and yoga classes with my high school students. Because as we'll talk about today, the two, yoga and mindfulness, should really be taught together. And those of you who practice yoga, you might notice that there isn't a lot of talk about Ayurveda in your yoga classes. Most Ayurvedic health counselors, practitioners, doctors probably come, or most, at least health counselors, come into Ayurveda through their yoga practice and their yoga studies. So a little bit about what Ayurveda is to begin. So I'm sure those of you that are interested in yoga and have taken yoga classes may have seen articles or online quizzes that say something about what is your dosha, or figuring out what your dosha is. So really, that's only one aspect of what Ayurveda is. So if I can step back to just the word Ayurveda, the word is broken into, it's two Sanskrit words, Ayur and Veda, meaning life knowledge or life science or science of life, or sometimes known as science of longevity. So both yoga and Ayurveda are ancient Indian practices that are often called sister sciences. And I've often heard them be mentioned as the same, two sides of the same coin. So they are interwoven, came up at the same time, thousands of years old, very deeply rooted in healing. And Ayurveda is really a practice of prevention, preventing illness and disease through the practice of right diet and lifestyle changes that help support the body and the mind. So in the West, we see our yoga practice as supporting the body. And also there's meditation and mindfulness as well. So we're supporting the mind too. But in our Ayurvedic practice, there's a lot more talk about food and diet, digestion, what foods to eat during what season, how those foods are combined, and how each individual should really practice, right? It's a very individualized practice. It's not a one size fits all. So when we look at what Ayurveda means, if you look up the word health, you'll notice that it will say something like free of illness and disease, right? But Ayurveda has its own definition of health. So the word health in Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word, swastha, which means to be established in the self. So that is much, much more than to be free of illness and disease, right? To be established in yourself means there's a lot of growth There's a lot of understanding of the self to be established in the self. So the rest of the definition also mentions the doshas, one who has balanced doshas, and I'll explain what those are shortly. One who has balanced Agni, which is the digestive fire, the word Agni we use in Ayurveda. Properly formed dhatus are the tissues of the body. Proper elimination of waste, well-functioning bodily processes, and one's mind, soul, and senses are full of bliss. So there's a great deal going on there in just the definition of health that Ayurveda gives us, much more than just being free of illness and disease. So we're looking to be mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually well, and finding this balance in all aspects of ourselves. So when we look at the word dosha, actually the doshas stem from the 5 great elements. So the 5 great elements are the building blocks of Ayurveda, and they are known as the Pancha Mahabhutas, is the Sanskrit word for the 5 great elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth, which I'm sure many of you have heard about the elements. You know all the elements, and the elements are what create the dosha. And the word dosha doesn't really have a translation. So they're often known as the mind-body types. So there are 3 mind-body types that stem from the 5 great elements. So ether and air form to create vata dosha. Fire and water create pitta dosha. And earth and water create kapha dosha. And those qualities, and also the elements, are within everything around us, including ourselves. So if I step back again to ether, space, right? There's space within our bodies, our ears, our nose. There's space between every cell. There's the air that we breathe. We talk about the fire of digestion, the Agni. The water, of course, is the liquid that moves through the body's synovial fluid, the blood, the lymph. And then the earth is that structure, the bones, the muscle, that give us stability. So there are qualities that are related to the doshas as well. And this is really, I think, the best way to try to understand how Ayurveda supports us. If you can remember the qualities of these doshas, there are 10 qualities and their opposites. And the way that we find balance with Ayurveda, the saying is that life like increases like, and opposites balance. So the qualities, or the gunas in the Sanskrit term for vata, the qualities are dry, light, cold, rough, and mobile. So these also relate to the season. So if I'm saying, I teach high school, and I teach yoga and mindfulness, as I mentioned, and I always try to infuse Ayurveda with my classes. So I give them like a little question or quiz. If I said to you, these qualities, right? Dry, light, cold, rough, mobile. Where do you think, what season would these qualities pop up the most? In fall and winter, right? Everything starts to dry up. The leaves get crunchy. They fall from the trees. There's more space in the air, right? In the environment. It's cold. Even within ourselves, our hair and our skin might get a little bit rough and dry. There's that mobility of the movement of the air. And the more I have studied Ayurveda, I always notice that one day after school begins, that you walk outside and the air is crisp that day, right? It's like, oh, it's vata season. Like pitta season has passed. That kind of slippery, oily, warm sharpness of the summer has faded, and now it's time to put on a jacket, and vata season is definitely present. So, and with pitta season, which is summer, we have more of the oily quality. It's hot, sharp, light, liquid. Those are the qualities that we notice in summer. And in kapha, with the earth and water elements, there's more of a heaviness, there's cold, it's still a little oily, but it's also smooth, soft, and slow. So if you notice for yourself, as you're thinking about these qualities and listening to the qualities of each season, so we're slipping out of spring now, right? So spring, we want to be warm. We're tired of being cold, but it's still cold. There's a heaviness because of the earth and water qualities that come together. The earth is soft. There's lots of rain. The snow that we didn't get is melting, right? So the earth is got that softness, smoothness, and everybody kind of feels a little bit sluggish, little lethargic, right? We need that kind of sharpness of the sun that's coming in the summer season. So all of these doshas also have their own functions in the body. So I'm just going to mention a few because, you know, this is the inner workings of everything, of our entire being. So with Vata dosha, it's the dosha of movement. It's the dosha that moves the other two, right? So when Vata dosha is out of balance, it's pushing the others around as well. So Vata is also related to our breath, right? There's movement as we breathe, of course. Also creativity, flexibility, communication. Pitta dosha is the dosha of transformation. There's fire, there's water, those two elements transform. It's also related to digestion, as I mentioned, the Agni of fire of digestion. Also our emotions and metabolism, right? Because our metabolism shifts and changes and it can also transform the body. And Kapha dosha is related to earth and water, as I mentioned, and the structure of the body. Also hydration, the solidity of the body, the bones, and protecting the body. So when we talk about how Ayurveda is practiced, like most people, you know about this practice, but we don't know what to do to have it support us. So the practice, again, if understanding the qualities of the elements and the three doshas, we can start with just noticing those qualities within the environment around you and noticing how those qualities show up within ourselves. So one of the phrases of Ayurveda is that we are the microcosm of the macrocosm. So whatever is happening around us is happening somewhat within ourselves as well. Of course, during the summer months, if there's lots of heat, we feel that heat, there's warmth within our bodies. The cold of the environment, we feel that cold in our hands and feet. Maybe the joints feel a little bit more cracking, popping of the joints in the colder months. There's a little more ease of that area of the body in the summer months. So this combination of the elements and qualities, we are all born with these three doshas. When we look at that kind of dosha quiz, it might only give you one, right? It's probably not a complete quiz. It's probably best to sit with someone, an Ayurvedic health counselor, practitioner, or an Ayurvedic doctor, so they can see this combination of those three doshas and which one of those is elevated, or what we call imbalance. So when at the moment of conception, those three doshas are present, and there's what we call our prakriti. It's your natural state. It's the unchanging state. And at different points in your life, different times or different things that can happen in your life that may upset those doshas, we call that our vikriti, or our imbalance. It's the changing or current state. So if you're happen to be doing a dosha quiz and you're thinking about who you are in the moment, your answer is going to be more of this vikriti, this current state of who you are. And thinking about your past self and how you've always been in terms of hair type, skin texture, like oily skin or dry skin, or body structure, shape. There's so many questions that are involved in a dosha quiz. It's really trying to dig into who you are. So if you're thinking about your overall life, that's more of your prakriti, who you were born as, and the vikriti is again your current state. So in talking about the seasons are also related to the doshas. So those 5 elements are, like I said, this like the building blocks of what Ayurveda is. And then the doshas stem from those elements. And then you have the qualities that are associated with those doshas, as well as time of day, time of life, and the season. So as I mentioned before, Vata dosha is during fall, winter, and those months are October, November, December, January, like when it's starting to get cold and we're in those months where it's really cold. It's also the best time to do what we call a digestive reset or a cleanse. So since Ayurveda talks a lot about food, during the summer, foods are, if you think about the type of food that we eat in the summer, they're much lighter, right? There's lots of salads, lots of greens, lots of really watery fruit. So that kind of food or eating shifts in the fall. In the fall, we start getting all these pumpkins and, apples and baking and roasting and completely different kind of way of eating than the summer. So we want to make this nice shift from one season and one kind of type of food into the next season and resetting the digestion. And Ayurveda has a really nice way of doing this digestive reset. I'd rather use that word than cleanse. It is somewhat of a cleanse and kind of ridding the body of the foods from the previous season. But you're really resetting the digestion and preparing for the foods of the next season. During the Pitta, as I mentioned, summer is June, July, August, September, right? And then the Kapha season is kind of early spring, February, March, April, May. And that is another time that's also that Ayurveda suggests we do this digestive reset. So coming out of summer into fall, and then moving from the winter into spring are the 2 big times of the year where there's the most shift in the types of foods that we're eating to prepare for the next season. Another one of the ways that Ayurveda suggests that we support our bodies, I know a lot of people, we have this term now of decision fatigue, right? So we have this nice daily routine that gives us a way to prepare for the day. And as you get into this routine, it's you're cleansing the senses and preparing your body for the day without really having to think about what comes next. I'm sure for most of you, as you get up in the morning, there are things that you do right away, right? You might go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, wash your face, go into the kitchen, start the coffee or turn the kettle on, make breakfast. Like there's a whole routine that you already have. Ayurveda suggests this daily routine or dinacharya that would help start the digestion a little bit subtler and kind of warming the belly and preparing for breakfast. So the daily routine would look something like this, and you don't have to do all of these things at once. Waking early is big in the Ayurvedic practice. So we want to rise just before the sun, preferably an hour and a half before the sun. And most people don't want to do that, but if you could get up just that much earlier before sunrise, that's just a clearer time of day. It's actually Vata time of day. And then we start guiding the ever seen tongue scraper U shape and holding the end scraper and ridding the tongue of that kind of coating that can happen with if we've had undigested food from the night before. You might hope that we want to get rid of for eating. So just doing a scrapes of the tongue and brushing teeth, of course, and oil the mouth. Organic sesame oil, but just sesame oil, kind of running that around in the mouth and spitting that into the trash and not down the sink, because you don't want to sink with oil. Helps kind of pulling the impurities away from the teeth and the gums and cleaning the mouth. Having warm water with lemon in the morning to
I'm sorry.
ignite digestion.
You're breaking up a little bit. It's
Oh,
breaking up just a little bit.
okay. That,
Oh yeah, it's breaking up a little bit.
oh, I don't know what happened. I don't know what to change.
Oh, okay. I think
Is it
it's okay
okay?
now. Yes.
Okay.
So you're talking about the tongue scraping?
Yes. Okay. So I'll jump back a little bit. So, and just do the daily routine Ayurveda suggests, and we don't suggest that you do all of these things at once, right? Maybe adding one or two that you think might be useful to try for a couple of weeks, and then adding another thing that might be something easy to practice. Talking about the tongue scraping, it's a metal stainless steel tongue scraper, kind of a long U shape, and just giving the tongue full of scrapes to rid the tongue of the kind of coating it have on the tongue in the morning. Brushing the teeth, and then, which some of you may have heard before, sesame oil, and it's much sesame oil. Maybe you could start with a teaspoon, or if you can, a tablespoon, and down and kind of pulling it through the teeth, and then spitting that out to trash and not down your sink, so that you don't start to clog your sink with oil. And then going warm water with lemon. One of the things that I've been practicing is to turn my kettle on low, and then the coffee already percolates. So I have my warm water first, and it can be just 8 ounces warm water with a quarter of lemon. You can add a little bit of honey. That is lemon is one of the sour tastes when we talk about the 6 tastes Ayurveda. And a little bit of fire, a little bit of warmth, start to bring up the digestive fire, which is a little bit of, it has some warmth to it in the morning. And the water is just going to help to get things moving in the belly. Doing a little bit of movement, like a gentle sun salutation, or just sitting with legs crossed, or even sitting in a chair and lifting the arms to breathe in, the arms to breathe out. Maybe a side bend, right and left, twist right and just getting movement in to start your day, or even if you're take a walk around the point as your light movement. And of course, having your light breakfast. Another suggestion of Ayurveda is abhyanga, or the oil massage. So it's a oil. You can, if you have a small bottle of oil, and there's lots of different oils, the specific doshas that you can. There are oil that you can buy. Oils is a favorite site to purchase all Ayurvedic. So you can set your little bottle warm of oil in a bowl, warm up your other daily practices, and then just using that oil is long strokes on bones, and strokes on the joints, just to get some. Well, it depends, depending on the season. If it's kapha season and it's cold, right? There's some um in there to kind of like get the skin hydrated, and if you put that into the skin, it's really, really beneficial for the tissue. And then, of course, after your abhyanga, you would take your shower, letting the excess oil just kind of rinse off the skin because you're not using very much oil. So the warmth will just kind of wash away some of the excess that's just sitting on. And you'll notice that the skin is much more lubricated, not dry, and you just kind of pat the skin dry after your shower. Light breakfast. One of the nice light breakfasts that Ayurveda suggests is a cooked apple. So either if you like to peel apple for the apple, chop it into small pieces, and just a little bit of water in a pan and that on the stove until you just nicely poke the apple, a little cinnamon, little nutmeg, delicious. It's great for just kindling that fire of the once again, and it's if you think of the way I like to think of the digestive the belly, especially in the morning, right? If you think of where the embers, the fire is pretty low, that's pretty much what over these hours of sleep, that digestion has gone down. It's pretty, the fire is high. So if you get up in the morning and then you put a huge breakfast on light fire, kind of in a sense, right? So if we something or try to refill, you're going to use twigs, right? Little small pieces of wood help to get the fire going again. So that's what I like to think. Water lemon and the